Well, it's a great honour to be here today, so also thank you very much for inviting me. It was 30 years ago that I left Dean Close, and I thought after 30 years it would be safe to come back. I wasn't expecting to see Mrs. Padgett, Mrs. Force, Mr. Taylor, Mr. and Mrs. Odell, and I believe Mr. Wilson's here somewhere. Yeah. So 30 years. And those 30 years have gone by so quickly. Time goes much slower when you're at school, and it speeds up when you get older. When I left school, I had no idea what life had in store for me, nor in what ways school had prepared me for the challenges that I would grapple with in the years ahead. All of us in life face love and loss, face successes and failures. And the measure of our character is how we cope when things go wrong, how we bounce back. What you learn in the classroom at Dean Close is important. Good grades will get you to good universities. Learning about the past will help you prepare for the future. Dean Close helps generate an interest in the world around you, inquisitiveness to learn more, and the basic skills necessary to be active participants in society. And it's the activities that you do outside the classroom which help develop your character. Cadet Force, Duke of Edinburgh Awards, sports, all that teaches you to work in teams and build up your stamina and resilience. And those experiences will help you in the years ahead to overcome hurdles, to pick yourself up after a fall. There's one message I have for you. It is to live with purpose. You've only got one life to live. What are you going to do with it? You are very privileged to have this education. How are you going to pay it back? How are you going to serve others? How can you contribute to something bigger than yourself? How can you help make the world a better place? Set yourself goals. Strive to achieve them. You will have many opportunities open to you. Seize them. When I left Dean Close, I took a gap year and I went off to work on a kibbutz in Israel. I got up at dawn to milk cows, and I sat around the campfire at night with young people from all over the world discussing the meaning of life and how to bring about world peace. And through that experience, I discovered my passion. I wanted to help bring peace to the Middle East. I went to Oxford to read classics. After all those lessons, Mr. Wilson. But once I got there, I changed my degree to focus on Middle East politics, history and languages. And I moved out to Jerusalem in the 1990s to work in support of the Oslo Accords, the peace process. I spent almost a decade there managing projects to build up the capacity of Palestinian institutions and to strengthen relations between Israelis and Palestinians. I experienced great work satisfaction in helping train Palestinian civil servants and in taking groups of Palestinians and Israelis to Northern Ireland to learn about the experiences there in mitigating conflict. I felt that what I did mattered, that I was contributing to something meaningful and important. But despite all the hard work in support of the peace process, the forces working against it were too strong, and it broke down. However, I learned a lot. I learned that leaders matter, that leaders can take people towards their hopes and away from their fears, I learned that people can change and opinions can evolve. I learned that people around the world are basically the same. They want to send their children to school, to earn enough money to support their families, to live in dignity. These were important lessons to internalize. In 2003, the year that the youngest of you here today were born, the UK and the US invaded Iraq. And even though I was against that war, I responded to the British government request for volunteers to go help rebuild the country because I felt I had skills and experiences which could be useful. Now, before I went out to Iraq in 2003, I didn't receive any briefing, and I had no idea what my job was going to be. I got a phone call from someone in the British government telling me to get to RAF Brize Norton, jump on a military plane, fly to Basra, where I'd be met by someone carrying a sign with my name on it, and taken to the nearest hotel. Well, it sounded plausible. It was June 2003. The invasion had been 3 months previous. The war was apparently over. I assumed the British government knew what it was doing, but just hadn't told me. So I followed the instructions. But when I arrived in Basra Airport, no one was expecting me. There was no sign with my name on it. And so I spent my first night sleeping in a corridor at the airport in 50-degree heat, surrounded by British soldiers who were all stripped down to their underwear. And I wasn't wearing appropriate underwear because I was expecting to go to a hotel. So the next day, I got on a military plane to Baghdad, and I found my way to the Republican Palace, which was the headquarters of the Coalition Provisional Authority. And I announced that I was Emma from England, come to volunteer. I was told they had enough people in Baghdad, and that I should try the north. So after a week at the palace, I found a flight to Mosul. When I got there, I was told they had someone, so I should keep going. When I arrived in Kirkuk, I was told that I was the senior civilian in charge of the province and reporting directly to the head of the coalition in Baghdad. Now, I had never run a town in the UK, let alone a province in someone else's country. So it was hugely daunting. And I realized that Iraqis took my role seriously when insurgents tried to assassinate me in my first week in Kirkuk. The insurgents approached my house in the middle of the night and fired 5 rockets into it. And it was absolutely terrifying. One of the rockets came up through the ceiling into the room where I was in bed, but the explosion was fortunately taken out in the ceiling. And the house was very badly damaged, but it had been well made. And the insurgents tried to storm the house, but were prevented from entering it by my guards. But once the attack was over, my guards then resigned en masse, saying it was too dangerous to protect me. But I didn't quit, because quitting was never an option I had at Dean Close. I had to use my initiative. The first thing I needed to do was to find somewhere else to live. And so I succeeded in getting a tent assigned to me on the airfield with the US military. I had to quickly learn about the province that I was now responsible for. And so every day I would go out and meet with different groups of Iraqis and listen to their concerns and their grievances and mediate between them. I had to ensure that schools and hospitals were working, that public services were being delivered. And as I had very few staff, I came to work closely with the US military to help stabilize the country. The only experience I had previously had with the military was being an army cadet at Dean Close. What I learned, and I adapted to the way in which the military operated. And I went on to become the political advisor to the top American general in Iraq. And I went everywhere with him on the battlefield, and in the corridors of power. And he was an extraordinary leader who made sure that all the soldiers believed that what they were doing was important, that their efforts and their sacrifice contributed to the overall mission of making Iraq stable. And I helped reach out to insurgent groups to persuade them to stop using violence and to try politics instead. And in Iraq, I got to work with members of the British SAS and discovered that their motto was a poem by James Elroy Flecker. And let me recite it. We are the pilgrim's master. We shall go always a little further. It may be beyond the last blue mountain barred with snow, across that angry or that glimmering sea, white on a throne or guarded in a cave, there lives a prophet who can understand why men were born. But surely we are brave who make the golden journey to Samarkand. We travel not for trafficking alone. By hotter winds our fiery hearts are fanned. For lust of knowing what should not be known, we make the golden journey to Samarkand. A powerful poem. And of course, James Elroy Flecker was also an Old Decanian. The chapel at Dean Close is a memorial to those who died in the world wars. Remember the roll of all those names in the chapel. 128 Old Decanians died in World War I. We honour them by leading our lives to the full, by contributing to our communities, by striving to create a better world. I've dedicated my life to promoting peace in the Middle East. I've had to cope with losing people I love and seeing all the efforts to bring peace end in failure. And there were times when I wanted to give up, when I wanted to stay in bed because nothing seemed to work. But I never lost hope. I dug deep and managed to find reserves to pull myself back up. So be grateful for the education you receive at Dean Close, for the teachers who care and nurture you, and for the friendships you make. You could not ask for better preparation for life. I'm here today with Jenny Bourne, who was my best friend at school, and who today is a teacher. We have been there for each other through good times and bad since we were 13 years old and first met at Dean Close. So try to make time for others, to listen, to care, to support. Remember that others are not so fortunate to have your start in life and the opportunities ahead of you. The road ahead is exciting. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to try. Make every day count. You may fail at times, but you will learn from that experience and pick yourself up and be stronger as a result. Overcoming adversity is the greatest lesson you can learn, and you will need to draw on your inner resilience. For those of you who are leaving, well done for surviving Dean Close, and good luck. The world awaits you. Go forth. Thank you very much.